pretty impressive. Boston, for some reason, they feel a little disjointed right now.
Yeah, they looked like it last night, too.
They look like they're disconnected somehow. That's not I've never seen Boston play against the Flyers like that. Even the game the Flyers beat them here last year, I thought Boston actually played well in that game. The Flyers overtook them. But the other night, listen, it was all about getting the 2 points. But for me, the most important thing is following it up and getting another 2 points. So Western Conference team that's been struggling, if you want to make your stand right now, and I hate to say this, you used to be able to wait till December to do this. You cannot wait till December anymore if you're the Philadelphia Flyers. You got to be ready to go immediately in this game and make sure you get the 2 points.
But can you explain something to me? You played in the NHL. Can you explain to me why the D-zone structure with 4 players against 5 opposition players has been good all year? The PK.
Yeah.
But 5-on-5 until the other night, until Tuesday in Boston, was a bit of a gong show with structure. When they had 5 out there, it was like they were like a moth to a flame.
Yeah.
And the PK's been good all year, but in that game we actually saw 5-on-5 D-zone structure as well.
Yeah, we did it. And
weird, right?
And I'm actually going to talk about that a little later in my keys to the game. Defensively, they did a good job the other night. I thought they bottled up Boston, kept things a little bit to the perimeter, which is what you have to do no matter what system you're playing. You have to defend. And we talked about, like I said that before the game, this team needs to defend better, give themselves a chance. And they did that. Penalty killing always works like that. There's a couple things that come into it. There's a system, right? So there's a complete flow. You know where you have to be on a penalty kill.
Quadrants, right?
You're in a box.
Yeah.
You're covering that area. There's nowhere else that you have to be assertive with going and defending the puck or to cover a lane. You're already doing that. That adds to one part. And the second thing that becomes a part of the penalty kill is your competitiveness. Your human nature, how does that factor in? Your willingness to block a shot, your willingness to be the first guy in the corner when there's 2 coming to get that puck from you and you make the play. That's what penalty killing does. There's a couple things that are really important with penalty killing. But 5-on-5 the other night, it was much, much better than we'd seen at any other point this year. In Boston, I think, had 23 shots. That's not a ton of shots.
No, they had a 5-on-3, and they had 4 other power plays, too.
They did. They had a bunch of power plays, and the Flyers did a good job just keeping things to the perimeter. And they're going to have to play defense like that again, but I will talk about that because there's a sacrifice for the defense that they played.
There's one thing that John Tortorella talked about back in the team's funk a couple weeks ago, and it was about the forwards mostly playing flat in a straight line. And I guess I was wondering if you could elaborate on a layman's perspective, like what leads to that. I saw it on one play in the Boston game where David Pastrnak, all he had to do was take 3 strides and he passed 4 people because, again, they were not what Torch refers to as layered. In that, I guess you don't have guys backing up each other, and if you're in one straight line across the ice, you can get beat very easily.
Yeah, that's where you're saying if you're staggering. So it's really on your forecheck. If you're doing a 1-2-2, these guys are trying to do more of a 2-1-2, where you get a little bit more pressure. So what happens is when guys come across and they end up being lined up, where they're almost like they're horizontally lined up. And what happens is when they're out of position, because there's a breakdown in the forecheck and probably a D-to-D pass, and what happens is that guy will slip behind them. That's where the 3 guys can end up looking really foolish because a smart player like Pastrnak will indeed be able to sneak behind you. So it's important to keep it in those layers because if the 2 guys go on them, it'll be hard to make the D-to-D pass. And then that middle guy, the 1 in the middle, is going to be a huge part of that as well, that puck not getting through the pass. So if it's 3 flat, it's trouble. If you're able to stagger, that's kind of defensive situation you want to have.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like when you're at the shore and one wave comes in, you can deal with it. But when you're dealing with multiple waves, you're like, geez, I can't get in the air.
That's absolutely. That's a good analogy.
It's a set of waves.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And you're right. Like they want to run that 2-1-2, but if you're coming in flat, there's nobody to – because F2 is there to take away that D-to-D pass, and then F3 is there now reading the play to whatever strong side is, and you've got yourself an advantageous situation. Let me ask you about this Monday because, that game in Boston, they played so well defensively with the structure. But the one thing, the little detail I thought they did really well in the game, and this is something that you as a player probably had to remind yourself to do sometimes, was the stick. Like the stick on pucks, the stick knocking down passes, getting the bodies in the right spots to force shots wide. It was all the little details defensively that were actually there.
The greatest trick I learned in the NHL was using my stick.
Yeah, especially with your reach.
Yeah, and I learned that from my great longtime partner, Desjardins, and Craig Ramsey, who was our coach. He said, you know what, you can be a master if you can get the stick. Stick on puck, stick on puck, stick on puck. We used to ingrain it in our heads, stick on puck. And that's all you're thinking. So the guy's going around the net, right? He's got control. All you're doing is you're putting your stick on the puck.
Yeah.
You don't even have to worry about taking the guy's head off or running him through the boards.
Yeah.
He can't make a play, and he knows if your stick's on the puck. And then what you do is you poke it, you prod it, and if the puck's on the boards, you just kind of one-arm it around again. It's the most unbelievable type of hockey to play as a defenseman, if you can do it right. Luckily, I played with the great master.
Develop it?
You know, I watched Desjardins, and then I started implementing it. So instead of going in the corner and trying to they always wanted the 6'5" guy in the transition of the game to take someone, just to go flying in the corner, just rock someone through the boards. And I was fine with that, but I'm going to be honest with you. That usually ends up being a bad play because you're taking yourself out. When you go in there with more of a style to get the pucks, you're getting your hands on it, you're working it, it's harder on the player. You can ask John LeClaire any time when he'll tell you what the hardest guy to play is were guys like Nicholas Lidstrom and Larry Murphy.
Because they attacked the stick.
They just they just got their sticks on the puck, and you can't make a good pass doing it.
Larry Murphy, the old capital, right?
Yeah, but I'm just and again, so there are those things that go on in the game, but that to me just became paramount. And it's nice to get a hit if you can get a stick on puck and then finish the check is a great thing to do on the boards. But otherwise, when you're battling and they're dropping passes and there's all kinds of stuff going on, the best thing to do is have to stick on your ice. It's to stick on the ice and to eliminate any kind of play that they're going to try to make. The puck is always trying to go to the front of the net ultimately.
Yeah.
And as long as you realize that, you're going to be okay. I think sometimes guys lose track of that. They're like, where's the puck going? It's only going one place, ultimately.
You want it to go to the front of the
net.
I saw this earlier this year. I think I discussed it in one of my highlight recaps that even on the offensive side of things, or not the offensive side, but the forwards, it doesn't take necessarily a huge hit or a nifty defensive play or a lot of effort to send the play going the other way in this day and age in the NHL. It takes sometimes just one little poke.
That's it.
And then you got another guy on the other side, and that's the kind of the way the Flyers like to play in transition.
And you are so right, Brian. And when you say that again, more stuff comes to my head because I just put myself back on the ice. If you can use your stick on puck in the right places on the ice, that's when you start turning them over.
Yeah. Right.
And you can play fast.
And you can play faster. So if you can have your D up with breaking up a pass, being able to pick something off that's coming across in the neutral zone because you have a good gap and you have a good stick, man, I'll tell you what, the look of your team chases. This Flyer team right now, they still wait till everything gets down in the corner before they separate it.
Right.
Before they make an attempt to it. And a lot of nights, they get hemmed in their zone a lot. Until the other night, which I'm hopeful for, is a nice bounce up for this team to be able to shut things down in the D zone.
It's exactly what you talked about in pregame. If you defend better from the crease out, you're going to get your chances at the other end as a byproduct because you're going to defend less. Let me before our first break, let me ask you about Emile Andre because he makes a little play on the goal from Tyson Forster. As he leads the play up the ice with his head up, and Forster ends up shooting it wide. It rims around to the left side. He pinches down the wall because he's jumping to the play, immediately reading that they're on a kind of a pseudo-transition play. And as he gets to the puck just above the top of the circle, there's a Boston Bruin player crashing on him, trying to get the puck, and he lifts his stick before he can get there, and the Bruin player fly by.
Yeah.
Now, head up, he knows where Forster is. Boom,
quick
ends
pass,
up in the back of the net.
Yeah.
I mean,
smart play.
Just that little stick flip was all he needed.
Yeah, and that's smart hockey. And those are little things to build on. And again, when you look at guys like and tough comparisons, but a Nicholas Lidstrom or a Duncan Keith, great with their sticks. Yeah. And I mean, and you wonder, they moved the puck well, they're good offensively, but they weren't out there to be world beater defensemen. And they ended up being pretty darn good defensive defensemen. You
couldn't even dump a puck past Lidstrom. He'd knock down the dump.
Yeah, he'd get everything.
On a clapper.
The Swedes were so good with their sticks. Yeah, just amazing.
They play baseball over there or something?
I hope not. They'll be winning the WBC before long.
Be some good ones. We're going to take a timeout. We're going to come back. We're going to talk to Tim Saunders. We're going to go to the booth. And when I bring you back in, I'm going to ask you about your perception of last year's start versus this year's start.
Okay.
I ran the numbers. It's a little shocking.
Okay.
All right, we'll take the break. We'll come back with more Flyers in the Blues. Flyers looking to win 2 straight. Countdown to face off at the top of the hour. Tim Saunders and Todd Fedoruk will have that. And Tim Saunders will join us in the booth coming up right after this. You're listening to the Flyers pregame show on the Flyers Broadcast Network.
This is the Fanatic Flyers pregame show on the Flyers Broadcast Network.
Okay, cool.
Blues tonight from Wells Fargo Center. Flyers look to put 2 in a row together as they face off against the Blues at Wells Fargo Center. Let's go to the booth now across the press box, and we bring in Tim Saunders. And Tim, you and I are not rocket scientists. Let's be very obvious about that. But we talked about the other night about the D-zone structure being better, and that may be the recipe moving forward.
Yeah, I hate to use the word blueprint, but that was the blueprint, right? And it's not exciting to play that way. Good teams that are really deep in talent can just go out and try to outscore the opposition. That's not what this Flyers team is. It's not going to be for a little while. Certainly wasn't last year. The formula last year was what we saw in Boston 2 nights ago. They defended first, and they just got to be patient and let the offense take care of itself. 28 block shots the other night against the Bruins, and that's kind of the barometer, and we talked about it all year last year. 20 was the magic number. If they blocked 20 shots, their record improved substantially. So that's kind of the hint that they're doing what they're trying to do, or they want to do.
A guy who got 4 games last year for the Flyers and is now called up this year and played multiple games is Emil Andre, and he has shown improvement in all areas, Tim, in particular the other night with that assist on the game-winning goal to Tyson Forster. But he's looking like he really belongs. Yeah,
I'm kind of hoping he never sees the American League again. Now, that's a big statement, and a lot can happen. Cam York is out of the lineup, but I almost get the feeling like even when Cam York returns, if Andre plays like he has the first couple of games, I don't think he sees the American Hockey League the rest of the year. Assuming he stays healthy, doesn't have to go back for any conditioning. He's got grit to his game, and it's a willingness both physically and a willingness to try to make plays, and that's kind of music to Tort's ears.
10 games into the season now. The Flyers don't have the same record as the St. Louis Blues. They're off to a slightly better record standpoint. But this is kind of the area where the Flyers can really start moving things in the right direction, very similar to last year.
Yeah, and the feeling around these two clubs is far different. St. Louis right now is looking for answers. They've lost 3 of their last 4 games. They're giving up a ton of goals. They're not getting much offense. This is an opportunity to stomp on a team when it's down. Again, Tuesday is what they're trying to get back to. They've got to be willing to check first and score after.
Yeah, Flyers have won 2 of their last 3. They'll look to make it 3 of their last 4 tonight. Thanks, Tim. Tim Saunders and Todd Fedora coming up at the top of the hour. Bundy, the first 10 games are in the books, and I like to grab these little schedule chunks and go, okay. My recollection of last year was, the team got off to a really good start. They rode it, and they got some belief. Baloney. I was stunned by the numbers. Last year, through 10 games, the team had a record of 4-5-1 last year. Flyers this year are 3-6-1. Only 1 game difference.
Yeah, but
doesn't it feel? Is that expectations? What is that?
Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to flat out say it because I don't skirt anything. I think there was a lot more concerted effort at the beginning of last year than this year.
Yeah, it looked different.
Can you tell me? I mean, honestly, both of you look at me in the eyes and tell me that this team competed really hard against the Montreal Canadiens on Sunday night?
No. There's a couple of games like that, Bundy.
There's
Seattle
been a couple.
was that way too.
But last year, even when they lost, they were in every single game. They were competing hard. It was about a year ago or we're coming up where they beat Vegas in that afternoon game. It looked like the team that could really do it. Like they were better than Vegas. They didn't just get lucky.
We won that game 4-3 in overtime.
There you go. That was around this time, right?
Game number 17 on the 18th of November.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying to you. But no, there's been some disjointed games this year. I mean, there's been games in the road they were lifeless at times, and I can't. If you ask me what this starts like this year to last year was a lot better. In terms of everything with it.
Optically, right?
Everything that came with it. The building of the culture again, getting some wins, playing with fire, playing hard for one another. The coach did a good job getting guys to buy in early. And so that was a lot of really good, important stuff.
They've scored 3 less goals in their first 10 this year, but they've given up 7 more goals.
That's almost one a game, about. Right? Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It's pure speculation on my part, but just watching what we've watched, it feels to me a little bit like, okay, this is year number 3 under this coaching staff. It felt some of the guys talked about how they knew what to expect coming into this training camp, and it was a little bit easier to handle, and it almost felt to me like there was a little bit of a complacency settling in once the season got underway, that everybody was I guess complacency isn't the word. Maybe it's a comfort level that was maybe starting to take the edge off of that stuff you described, Monday, from last year, from the start of last season, where there was a real, just floor, pedal to the floor, just playing as hard as you can in that early going last year. And I think there were a couple of meetings over these last couple of games where they're trying to snap out of that a little bit. I don't know if that's a thing. I don't know if that's something you guys saw, but I think when you get into a comfort level with a coaching staff like this, that's when they start coming back at you and saying, hey, we got to get to work here.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think Torts has done a good job getting guys to buy in here. The end of last year and the beginning of this year, for me, until the other night, kind of flowed together, and it's hard to get away from that. It was a disappointing end of the year, and it's been a disappointing start to the season, to be honest with you, until the other night. So, but
magnified a bit because it is the start of the season, I think, too.
Correct, and so that's exactly why, because you're expecting things, and we know. I mean, you're not going to be able to duplicate 1 year to the next, or even just change the trajectory of what that looks like until your team starts getting better, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some things that they've done better. They've gotten better in the things that they needed to improve on. But there's still another gear to go. And I think Torts said it last week. I read somewhere. He says, "Listen, they may want to call this a rebuild or call it whatever you want, but we're still better than this."
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, we saw this before, right? We saw a team that was on their way to making the playoffs, short of a collapse last year. And we were treated to an effort almost every single night. And go back to what Danny said. Everybody that went to Danny last year thought this team was going to start off 1-9.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the dead truth, right? They had nothing to really sell. And so Danny said, you know what? We want to rebuild our culture here. We want to get guys to work hard. And how this team plays will be dictated by the players on the ice. And we were treated to a special year. It would have been really special if we would have made the playoffs.
Let me take you back again to when you were a player. And also bring you back to your days when you were a psychologist. Even though you didn't know you were, you probably were. You were there to provide some laughs at the right times too. But how much of it kind of in the start and that effort you saw last season and guys just spilling it right out of the gate also was a byproduct of the fact that Kevin Hayes wasn't back, Ivan Provorov wasn't back, it was James Van Riemsdyk wasn't, it was addition through subtraction. What do we see this offseason? Not really any change.
No change. So guys, they signed guys that they felt
it's
worthy.
a little comfy, right?
Yeah, they signed guys that they felt worthy. I mean, the only guy who really isn't back is the defenseman who went to Colorado last year, Sean Walker. Yeah. Essentially in terms of a big piece of the pie, right? And, but outside of him, it's the same looking kind of team. The goaltending situation's different. That's the other part too, right? So we can't forget that. I mean, Ursun did a nice job, and he was the guy that we relied on. We only talked about him the second half of last year. So I really do think, though, that you give him a chance and let him settle in a little bit and see what happens here tonight as well, to see if he can build on that shutout in Boston the other night.
He was good the other night.
Very, very good. Yeah, solid. Just solid. Nothing
Didn't have
outstanding.
To stand on his head, right?
He was just, when they always say, when you're good, you don't have to be great. He was just good all the way through.
Made a couple saves he probably shouldn't have made. Made all the ones he was supposed to make.
Absolutely.
Let's take our last time out. We're going to come back with line combinations. Bundy's 3 keys to victory. It's appointment listening, everybody. Stay tuned. Flyers Blues at the top of the hour on the Flyers Broadcast Network.
This is the on 97.5 The Fanatic.
It is the Flyers and the Blues from Wells Fargo Center tonight, and let's get to the line combinations. Bundy's 3 keys to victory are coming up. Top line, no change. It's Couturier, Mishkov, and connecting. Do you feel like Mishkov was maybe pushing a little the other night?
Yeah, he's going to. He's still learning, just everything, tendencies, traits of guys, the league, teams, new buildings, line changes, what those look. Yeah. It's just like you don't know it until you know it. And you have to go through it one year.
League's starting to learn him a little bit, too. He's going to have to
they are.
Adapt, right?
There's no doubt. Because, remember, he's a small space operator.
Yep.
And if you're a guy, remember we just talked about the stick-on puck?
Yeah.
He's a stick-on-puck guy that you need to defend with a stick-on-puck.
And that's something Torts talked about today, too, is that they've got to, work with him on defensive coverage. They know that. They're perfectly willing to be patient about it. But he's had those couple of situations, like in the Edmonton game, where defensively he just was not where he needed to be. And, that's something he's got to get used to also.
Yeah, you want to take his time away as quickly as you can, don't you, Bundy?
For sure. Because that's what
you want to rush him.
Yeah, so what his dynamic thing is for Mishkov, it's time and space.
Yeah. When
he has time, he's going to make you pay. When he doesn't have time, he can make him look kind of ordinary.
Yeah.
He's not
force the mistake.
He will not wow you with his skating. He's not that kind of player. But neither is Kucherov.
Right.
And when you look at him too, he will find and blend his way into this league where he'll find a spot that makes him comfortable every single night. Eventually.
Frost, Forster, and Tippett. Forster with his second goal of the season the other night. Good shot, maybe one that Jonas Korpisalo would like to have back, being from where it was, but he needs to shoot more. Tippett needs to continue shooting, but hit the net a little bit more.
Yeah. Right? That's definitely something for him. We've talked about it since the beginning of the year, and it's a continual work in progress.
Lawton, Brink, and Farabee. Farabee got the empty netter the other night. Palin going to play with Cates and Hathaway. Got some versatility there if you want to move Cates in for draws. I thought Cates had the strongest game the other night.
He did. He had a really solid game. Again, being in a situation where he didn't play the first few games and maybe a little bit delayed getting the season going, we saw a lot of the quintessential Noah Cates that we've seen before. You mentioned it at the time when he wasn't playing, what that said, because this coaching staff likes him so much.
Yeah.
Now they've got him back there doing the kind of things they like.
Yeah, he liked that and mitigated an icing call with the empty net as well, which was could have turned out to be a big play before the Flyers eventually got the empty netter. Sanheim and Ristolainen and Sealer and Drysdale. And Emil Andre right back in there with Eric Johnson on the right side, and it'll be Sam Ersson in it for the Flyers tonight, coming off that 2-0 shutout win over the Boston Bruins. All right, let's get to it, Bundy. Let's get to the Bundy 3 keys to victory.
You know what? I just actually turned my phone off, but I'm going to remember them off the top of my head because I was giving it a restart.
Key number 1.
First one is the St. Louis start tonight. Be aware of them. They lost 8-1.
Oh.
Tonight, if I'm a Flyer player or the coaching staff, I'm not focused on St. Louis as much as I'm focused on ourselves. But you have to keep in mind they just got absolutely blown out. They're going to have a fire under them. They're going to come out with competitive juice flowing. Number 2, it's all about the Flyers tonight. The Flyers need to build on that victory from the other night, and they have to get a streak going here. Short of a streak at some point, they're going to be at the bottom of the conference, and that's not a place you want to be, especially as you approach this month of November, which is critical before it really starts ramping up. And the third thing, if I can remember off the top of my head, was, yes, defensively, number 3, the Flyers were good the other day. But situationally and puck support in the offensive zone, I have not liked what I've seen a lot of. So there's been a sacrifice. We're playing better defense, but we don't have a ton of consistency in making offensive plays, puck support for the forwards and defense as one unit. That has to improve. But I'm still a believer in taking care of your own house first, and let's see how that develops. It's okay to win a 1-0 game.
Right.
And if they have to do it again tonight, go for it.
What does good puck support do for the team in the offensive zone?
It keeps them in the other zone.
Second chance opportunities, right?
Second chance.
Yep.
Keeps the other team. It keeps the momentum going. If you can get the defenseman going. They've given up. They've given up less defensively, but they've taken less offensively because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did notice a couple of situations in the Boston game. Bobby Brink in particular, keeping that going. Just getting the second opportunity. We saw Tyson Forster do it a lot last year. Mm-hmm. There'd be a shot, it goes to the corner. Brink was there getting it, and that's it doesn't feel like puck support, but that's the kind of thing that needs to happen in order to keep things in the cycle and get that second possession going.
Yeah, and winning the race to the puck.
Puck race,
reading the play, and
possession.
When it's up for grabs, go get the damn thing.
Yep. I think that Flyers did a lot of really good things the other night, but they have to build on it. You can't go beat Boston the other night and then come home and lose to St. Louis.
Yeah,
that can't happen. If you're a team that's
six shots through 2 periods of play, I'm gonna pluck my hair out.
You cannot do it. You can't do it. This has to be a win tonight. If you're going to get back in the standings, you have got to keep climbing. This is a must-win again.
Yeah, I said the same thing on Flyers Day. I said, I'm not going to go crazy. There's a lot of games left. And say, if they don't win this game, it's over. No, it's not there. But, I mean, there's got to be an inflection point here.
It's getting late early.
It does. They turn off the lights earlier than you think.
Tomorrow's November 1st, by the way.
It is.
It's just,
which means today's Halloween.
It's crazy how that's moved up kind of from that Thanksgiving date that everybody wanted to be in the playoffs. Now it might even be tomorrow,
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Crazy to see. We'll see how this one goes tonight. Flyers look to win 2 straight games. But stay tuned. We've got the countdown to face-off, and that'll be followed by all the first-period action as the Flyers get set to take on the St. Louis Blues. Tim Saunders, Todd Fedoruk are standing by. They've got all the first-period action and the countdown to face-off coming up right after this. You've been listening to the Fanatic Flyers pregame show on the Flyers Broadcast Network.
You are listening to 97.5.